What's up, guys? Part-Time Gamer Dad here, and today I'm going to give you my predictions for AEW Revolution 2025. Now, jumping right in, we're starting off with 0 Hour, with the conglomeration teaming up with Big Boom AJ to take on Johnny TV and the MXM Collection. And this is a pretty easy one, guys. I mean, Big Boom AJ is there. The Costco guys are there. We also have Orange Cassidy involved. It's very clear. This is a trios match, a 6-man tag team match. Johnny TV and MXM, they are jobbers. They are the definition of a fun gimmick that is relegated to jobber status. And when you have Big Boom AJ, somebody with that much like reach in the social media world, and is kind of putting AEW in more people's eyes and more people's purview, then you continue to make that guy a star. So I think this is probably one of the easier things to predict. It's pretty inconsequential because it's on 0 Hour, and most of the things that have value or have stakes don't happen on the pre-show or 0 Hours. I know that might be a little bit different from how WWE presents pre-show, but they don't really do pre-show matches anymore. So all that said, Big Boom AJ and conglomeration for the win. Now we're on to the card proper. We're going to see Will Ospreay take on Kyle Fletcher in a steel cage match. In terms of the overall series, Will Ospreay has the more wins, and he's kind of the guy that's almost impossible to beat, though Kyle Fletcher did beat him that one time after that jumping, leaping tombstone onto the steel stairs. And so the steel cage is there to keep the Don Callis family out and to allow it to be a fair fight. Obviously, I think they will get involved, and we also have another Don Callis family member who has a match later on in the night. Will that match bleed into this one, or vice versa? I almost want to say that Will Ospreay is going to win. Mark Davis being involved in this could be a swerve, and he ends up costing Ospreay the match. For right now, tentatively, I'm going to say Will Ospreay wins this match, but it will be very hard fought. It will continue to solidify Kyle Fletcher as a main event star, might even help propel him to potentially competing for the world title in the next year or two. With this whole feud with Will Ospreay, it has been a really star-defining breakout program for him. But I think Will Ospreay is just the guy right now. And so we're going to see him walk away with this victory at Revolution, but just barely. Now let's talk about that other match. The International Championship. The champion, Konosuke Takeshita, defending against the best bout machine, Kenny Omega. And I think it would be really easy to say Takeshita wins here, right? But I'm going to say Kenny Omega wins this one, but maybe not necessarily wins the title. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to say he walks away with the title, but I do think Kenny Omega wins, whether it's count out, pinfall, submission, DQ. He walks away with the win because this is a straight up match for a title, but you can protect Konosuke Takeshita by keeping the title on him and Kenny winning by DQ. So it protects both guys. Then we can maybe get to a triple threat or a fatal four-way where you have Fletcher, Takeshita, Ospreay, and Omega all involved. Maybe Mark Davis gets some. I mean, there's a number of routes you can go with this. I don't think we're done with this whole Ospreay and Omega versus the family storyline after Revolution. Could they switch partners? Omega versus Fletcher and Takeshita versus Ospreay? Sure, but we've seen Ospreay and Okada recently. I'm sorry, Takeshita and Ospreay very recently as well. So there's a lot of routes you can go with this. I think regardless of whether he can win the title or not, it doesn't really matter because Kenny Omega is going to go for the world title scene soon. And we also have All In going to my hometown of Arlington, Texas here this summer. And I think we're going to have something more along the lines of Okada versus Omega at that, or we might have Ospreay versus Omega. So for right now, whatever happens, whether he wins the title or not, I think Omega leaves Revolution with a win. So kind of talking about predictable matches like we did with the 0 Hour match. Next up, we have Kazuchika Okada defending the Continental Championship against Brody King. Obviously, Malachi Black recently left AEW, kind of leaving Brody King and Buddy Matthews to find their own footing as single stars, potentially as a tag team. And obviously, Julia Hart is factored in there as well. I just don't see Okada losing. I don't see him losing the Continental Championship really to anybody. He might, give it up. He might vacate it. He could lose it to somebody, make it a star-defining, performance and an opportunity for someone who's maybe not on the same level as Okada. But Okada's just been presented as a really strong wrestler and almost kind of like a final boss, not even of just like the Continental Championship division, but overall. And they've been presenting him as the best tournament fighter in the history of professional wrestling. And while I'm excited for Brody King to get this title shot, I think it's just going to continue to ring true that Okada is the guy to beat, and nobody could beat him. Now, I think that's why we might see Omega versus Okada at All In, but at the end of the day, when we leave Revolution, that Continental Championship, it's still going to be around the waist of Kazuchika Okada. Next up, MJF versus Hangman Adam Page. This one is actually kind of difficult to predict because you don't really have any stakes in it in terms of like a number one contendership, which we'll talk about that later, or a title involved. So it could really go either way, and it's going to continue to progress the storyline. I think because we're probably going to see this continue to play out, I would have MJF win and kind of further this feud. Now, you could have Hangman Adam Page win. He's more of the babyface in this feud, so I feel like when babyfaces win, a lot of times you end up kind of ending the storyline there, or at least the stakes don't feel as high. But AEW is a little bit of a different beast. You could get away with Hangman Adam Page winning, and then MJF could come back and be even more dastardly and evil. Now, we did see MJF try to light Hangman Adam Page on fire. I think it'd be very interesting to see maybe the roles be reversed and like Hangman Adam Page lights him on fire like he did to Swerve Strickland. Or maybe what will happen is MJF does get to light him on fire, and that's the post-match beatdown, or he gets a DQ loss by trying to light him on fire and attacking him with, foreign objects. So going between the two, it's kind of hard to say. For now, I'm going to say MJF gets the win. I also have a very babyface heavy victory designation throughout this entire show, with babyfaces winning all over the place. And you do need heels to kind of solidify them to get to the point where you have viable people to go up against those baby faces, right? So like Omega, Ospreay, and those kind of guys, like you need MJFs to go up against them. But I don't think this is going to be in the feud for MJF and Hangman Adam Page, because I think MJF wins, Hangman Adam Page wants to get redemption, and then we'll see a rematch probably at Dynasty. Now let's talk about that number one contenders match. We have Swerve Strickland going against Ricochet, and whoever wins will be the number one contender for the AEW World Championship. I just don't see Ricochet winning. I see Swerve Strickland winning the number one contendership, which kind of might go against my prediction for the AEW World Championship match. But I really think that Swerve is at a point where he's done a lot of great things. He's ready to go back to the World Championship scene. He could really compete with a number of people who are in that mix now. He kind of held it down while a lot of people were gone or injured or were coming into the AEW. So at this point, I have Swerve Strickland to win, get back in the world title picture, and then we'll see if he can win the world title back. Obviously, there's been a lot of flags planted in this Death Rider storyline against Cope and FTR and all those guys, but we will see what happens with Swerve. Maybe this isn't the end of the story between Ricochet and Swerve Strickland. Maybe Ricochet cost him when he has that world title match, but I just don't see Ricochet being taken too seriously at this moment in the World Championship picture. He's doing some good work. He needs to continue to develop and get further along to be considered a legitimate contender. If he won the number one contendership, I just feel like it would be a squash match, or it would just be on a Dynamite, he would get a shot. He wouldn't get it on a pay-per-view. You give it to Swerve, you're obviously going to get a main event match on a big show and potentially winning the world title back. Next up, the Hurt Syndicate against the Outrunners for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Not much to say about this one. Hurt Syndicate recently won these tag team titles, so I don't see the Outrunners as over as they are, and as big a babyface as they are, and as much as the crowd is clamoring for them to win the tag titles, it's much like Private Party. Just hold on a little bit longer. Just hold on a little bit longer this summer, maybe at All In. I think we're going to see them win the tag titles. Maybe not off a Hurt Syndicate, but we will probably see a new member join Hurt Syndicate, or MVP, of course, will interfere to help the Hurt Syndicate, successfully retain, or we'll just see Bobby Lashley destroy everybody, which is a very Bobby Lashley thing to do. So at the end of this match, Outrunners, love you. You have great charisma. You're really over with the crowd, but it's not your night to win the titles. Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin to retain. Now let's talk about some women's title matches. We have Timeless Toni Storm, who also just won the title, very recently, her title, against Mariah May, the former champion. Again, I just don't see Timeless Toni Storm losing this title so quickly after she won it. But you could surprise the crowd and Mariah May could take this title. I think there's a lot of legs left in this feud, a lot of story still to be played out. But Timeless Toni Storm will get the win here. She'll retain, and I think we'll continue to build towards Dynasty. I just don't know who else you throw into the main event picture at this point. I do think eventually Mercedes Moné will get involved into the AEW Women's World Championship picture, but we will talk about that in a minute, why I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think Mariah May is still the foil to Timeless Toni Storm, and maybe Timeless Toni Storm doesn't get a clean win. Maybe she gets a win via DQ. Maybe she gets a win via countout. Maybe Mariah May has somebody else in her back pocket who is going to assist her to defeat Timeless Toni Storm and win the title. This one's kind of difficult to say, but I think based on the recency of her title win at Grand Slam Australia, we are going to see, was that what it was called? It was whatever show was in Australia. We're going to see Toni Storm successfully retain the women's title, which leads us to the TBS Championship match between Mercedes Moné defending against Momo Watanabe. And again, this is just another match to show off Mercedes Moné, to add to her win streak. It was very similar to Jade Cargill. We're getting close to breaking Jade Cargill's record of the title reign in terms of days. It's not terribly far off. It's less than a year. I think they're going to give it to her as kind of a strike, like a mark against Jade Cargill, to be like, look, Mercedes Moné is the greatest TBS champion of all time. Then she'll lose it. I'm shocked where Camille is, unless she's the one who's going to, take it off of her down the road. But for this match, for this night, it's probably the easiest prediction outside of 0 Hour match that we are going to see Mercedes Moné retain. All right, for the final match, and yes, I did move my car because someone pulled up next to me in the parking lot I was in, and it was awkward. But we have the AEW World Championship match. The defending champion, the leader of the Death Riders, Jon Moxley, against the Rated R superstar Cope. And guys, listen, I have a little bit of concern. I have a little bit of concern that Cope is going to win this, and that also kind of makes me hesitant about my sort of Strickland prediction. I know that Jon Moxley doesn't have anybody, and I still think Jon Moxley's going to win, and I think, they're building up this whole story of who's going to stop the Death Riders, and Cope has been working on it. But I really feel like we're going to get Swerve versus Jon Moxley. Swerve is a man of the people, and he's going to be the one who wins it. Now, we could have Cope win, and I think that it would be very disappointing to see Jon Moxley win and continue this storyline. But we never got Darby versus Moxley. That was kind of weird. We haven't really got a young, AEW born and bred to a degree, right? And I know Swerve started in other places, but he made it big in NXT. And then he kind of got onto the main roster. So the argument is he's a WWE guy, but actually he is more of an AEW guy. That's where he really had his breakout part of his career. I think we're going to see him be the guy who throws the company back on his back and take that championship away from Jon Moxley. So in order to do that, Jon Moxley retains the title here at Revolution. Because what do you want to see? Do you want to see Moxley versus Swerve or Ricochet versus Cove? I think I just answered my own question. So guys, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments down below who you have predicted to win the AEW World Championship match at Revolution, and I will see you very soon.